And again, kind of paralleling other creators like authors out there, like that's why they do these things like book tours. Like it's literally creating that connection and it's engaging directly with your audience. Engagement is always going to be key.
It's also just a chill vibe, guys. Come on.
It doesn't love a chill vibe.
You're wearing a headliner tie-dye. I had to use the word chill and vibe at some point today. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Headliner Podcast. We're your hosts, Nicholas and Alyssa, and we're here to keep you in the loop on everything happening within podcasting and share what you can do to promote your show. So Alyssa, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're going to be talking a little bit more kind of about marketing and branding, but more specifically kind of how to help brand your podcast and really help you kind of stand out in the crowd.
Okay, very cool. Is there a specific reason why we're doing this? Is it just like a nice to know, or is there something relevant that totally inspired this conversation we're totally organically having?
Both. So kind of for some context, this week in podcasting, there's kind of this conversation about, not just this week, there's kind of this ongoing conversation, but anyways, is there too much competition in podcasting? This specific episode was kind of sparked all because this guy named Tom Webster, if you're in podcasting, he is one of the partners over at Sounds Profitable. He put this thing out on LinkedIn, and it was basically just kind of a joke saying like, hey, you think podcasting's competitive? Try being an author. Because in the US alone, there was over 4 million new books published last year. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And, kind of with the joke of, oh, everybody has a podcast these days. Like, yes, there are a lot of podcasts. It's very hard, don't get me wrong. Could be worse, though. So that's kind of, thinking about that. But it kind of percolated throughout the little, our podcasting community. And it actually made the headline of Pod News, I think on Tuesday. I want to say that.
Monday, Tuesday, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, early week. Anyways, so James Crinlin, editor of Pod News, which I do want to say, Headliner is actually a partner of both Pod News and Sounds Profitable, so shout out that.
There you go.
We love
pat ourselves
some
on the
collabs.
back. Yeah.
We love some collabs there. But anyways, it's just, kind of percolated, and people have been just having this conversation like, is there too much? And I think both sources kind of pointed out, yes, it's hard. Yes, there's a lot of competition, but kind of, again, the comparison was being drawn between podcasting and other mediums. And for authors, 4 million new books published just in the US is insane.
Sure.
And what Pod News pointed out is there was 207,907 new podcasts globally, according to Listen Notes. So is the market saturated? I would say not. Competitive? Definitely.
Okay, first off, I need to go take a step back because 4 million books a year in the US is already insane. And then, you bring up the 207,000 number. Yeah, that's a huge discrepancy for podcasts, right? That makes it seem so much less oversaturated when you just put those stats next to each other. And I want to point out, podcasts are a lot faster to make than a book. I take it from me. I've self-published 3 of them. Like, that becomes your life for a year to publish a single book. So you have a podcast that you're doing weekly. Yeah, it's a lot less of a competitive space. Is there a lot of people putting stuff out? Is there a lot of content out there? Of course. But you can find your niche and you can definitely carve out a little piece of that pie for yourself. It is a factor of maybe 20 times smaller than publishing. It may feel like everyone has a podcast, but comparatively, they're more likely to have a book. I think we've thrown this stat around before. The US's population is 350 million. So, almost 1 out of every whatever. I don't even know. I'm going to drop that stat completely. The point is, a lot less people have podcasts than books.
Yeah, exactly. But, it kind of begs the question of, what can I do to stand out? Because, obviously, don't get us wrong. That's almost 250,000 new podcasts entering the market. That's a lot. And especially with so much kind of focus being on podcasting right now, podcast listenership has really taken off. I'm not even going to nobody cite me on this, please, please, please. But I think podcast, not like this, just the saturation of what podcasting is now almost like over 90% of US adults like know at least what a podcast is.
Sure.
So we're seeing like awareness and listenership climb. So, what can we do as podcasters to kind of help us stand out amongst the crowd?
Yeah. And I think this is kind of something that we've said before, or that a lot of people have said, and it's just genuinely great advice that bears repeating. It is bearing down on your niche, right? If you're a business podcast, it's not just doing general business advice, but like specific to your industry, specific to your subset of that industry. I'm a video editor, right? So if I'm a video editor and I want to make a podcast about video editing, maybe I don't talk about all of video editing. Maybe I talk about, well, this is the video editing theory applied to podcasting, or something that I'm a bit more of an expert in, so that the people that enter my podcast are getting the specific knowledge that applies to them. There's another very common idea. I'm sure you've heard of it before, Alyssa. It's this guy, Kevin Kelly. He had this idea called the 1,000 True Fans Theory, which is for any kind of like content creation, web business, etc. So long as you have 1,000 people who will listen to every episode, buy your merchandise, etc., you're kind of in the gold there. It only really takes 1,000 true fans that are willing to put up, like, I think he said $100 a year for you to successfully do something, right? So I think that applies to dealing with this competitiveness in podcasting. You just have to find your audience. You have to tailor your content for that audience. And so long as they're happy, you're going to continue to grow, because we all know how these algorithms on the internet work, right? They see people responding positively to something, and then they introduce that content to other people that are into similar things, or they continue to show it to the people that were interested in the first place. Now, to that end, I'm sure there's something that a lot of people are thinking right now, which is, that's great. Hey, make more content, be consistent, tailor it for a specific audience. Great. Love it. What if I don't have the time to? That valid question. We were just joking about it before we hit record, where I was like, yeah, our advice is to basically give up on seeing your wife and children for a while so that you can be a podcasting genius or whatever. But Alyssa, I'm sure you also have like some tips that might be able to help you with that, or help people with that.
Yeah, and I do want to say, like, it's a lot. Don't get me wrong. Like, we have our podcast in addition to our full-time jobs, and it's like it can get a lot. Like, I'll admit we don't always have the most amount of time to dedicate to our show as we would like to, or as we would hope. But there are plenty of things that you can do, which a lot of these tips I actually kind of reverse engineered from what do authors do to promote their book, because like we've talked about what podcasters do, but like kind of what are other creators in slightly more competitive spaces doing to help kind of market, promote, grow, all of that stuff. But then also kind of along the way, like going to be shouting out some tools that help, because thankfully, especially for podcasters, there's a lot of brands and companies out there that they are also podcasters, like,
Oh, wow, you're wearing the swag today. I didn't even piece that together.
Yeah, I went to the gym and I was like, I don't have time to change. And it was like, how fortuitous that I wore a Headliner shirt to the gym today. Awesome.
Nice.
But anyways, that's how my morning went. But where I was going with this, there's plenty of companies out there that know the pain points, and they've tried to design specific solutions for podcasters to kind of help give that time back. There's plenty of free tools. Of course, Headliner, I'll shout it out. We've done a lot to kind of help kind of smooth the whole process, to kind of give you an end-to-end all-in-one tool to help just very quickly like do things that help to kind of optimize content. So we're going to be thinking about like transcriptions, show notes, YouTube descriptions, social captions, all of that kind of branded to your show, just kind of looking at your RSS feed. And again, we'll kind of talk a little bit more about how to make a brand, how to present that brand consistently. But tools like that, AD by Headliner, super easy, super simple, free for a lot of podcasters to use to kind of help along the way. Other tools, we know that video is super popular right now. So again, there's like 100 different kind of video clipping, video captioning tools out there. we've got like Headliner, there's Opus, there's Riverside, there's Descript. Those are kind of, top of mind when I think about like podcasts. Well, not necessarily podcasting first, but kind of creator first tools.
Yeah.
There's no shortage out there. So don't worry. We're going to tell a lot of information, but there's tons of tools to help. Literally just Google like podcasting tools and you'll get so much help. It'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And plus, like, I think the main point here of like bearing down on your niche is that you don't even have to tailor your content toward this to stand out more. It is kind of in the marketing. It is in how you position yourself. I think one thing that's sort of underrated within podcasting is this idea of like, hey, I put my podcast out, now what? Well, you can also go live outside of podcasting a little bit, right? You can do more standard content stuff that isn't tied to your show. You can post YouTube videos. You can post on social media, and not just like clips or segments from your podcast, though you should be doing that too because you've already made that stuff, right? And that's stuff that, like, again, like Headliner is really good at just repurposing your existing content. So you can always repurpose your existing podcasts and do that. But, even just making supplemental stuff. I think a lot of podcasters have found success in taking their episodes and being like, okay, let's just say I finished recording this podcast with you, Alyssa. I have a bit of that extra bandwidth before I have to do something. Let me grab my phone and do like a TikTok vlog style video really quick where I summarize this episode. And at the end of this vlog, I go, and if you want to hear the more detailed version of this, check out my podcast at, and then brackets, insert link, whatever. So doing stuff like that, guesting on other podcasts is another big thing. And that's great if you don't have time to be making those promotional clips because hint, hint, you probably won't be the one making them if you're the guest on the show, right?
That's the beauty of guesting, yes. I love nothing more than when somebody says, hey, Headliner, will you come guest on our show? I'm like, I would love to. Typically, there's normally, whenever, and again, this is kind of something that authors do. They'll go on to podcasts, but kind of just in the creative world in general, like podcasting's popular. People are listening to it. And it's really great because you have a known established audience and there's kind of a tone set for you. So you're able to kind of directly reach people, for podcasters at least, that are interested in what you have to say because you're on a podcast. So it's a one-to-one kind of value creation there for both you, the other podcaster, and the listener. So I guess one-to-one. But it's super easy, super awesome. You can not only get, the promotion of being in the podcast, but likely that host is going to do something to promote the episode. So now you have the podcast, their promotional content, and it's just kind of this really awesome cycle. And it's evergreen, so it's going to be there forever and ever and ever.
For sure.
So as more listeners kind of find a show or find whatever you were guesting on, it'll be there.
Yeah, and I think there's also something deeply validating about being on another podcast. Like, to use myself as an example, if I'm hosting my own little movie podcast, okay, cool, whatever. But now let's say I get brought onto another movie podcast. Everyone being introduced to me on that show will immediately go, this person was interesting enough that he was asked to be here. Let me check out what he has to say. There's a bit of validation just kind of baked into the fact that you're the guest of honor. And also, yeah, it's networking, right? It's the same reason we network at our jobs. It's the same reason why we network everywhere. It's because we want to put ourselves out there and meet people and make connections. In the spirit of that, maybe one of the ways that you can cut through the noise of the 207,000 podcasts out there is you can almost kind of network with your existing audience. Just reply to comments. When you post something and someone says something, give it a like. Say thanks for commenting. Be friendly. Be nice. This is a reminder for me, not you guys. I have to look in the mirror every day and remind myself to be nice to people.
Don't we all, though?
Yeah, right. It's awful. I have to do like the whole like look in the mirror and hum like Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar. So
glad
anyway,
I'm not the only one. Oh, that makes me feel so much better about myself.
Yeah, well, that's
yes.
what I'm here for. But yeah, you do that, you talk to people and you build a relationship with your audience because at the end of the day, there is also nothing greater than a person organically recommending your show. It's one thing for me to get a paid ad, as I'm one to do on Instagram, for this like baseball history podcast, which, by the way, I'm like moths to a flame with this stuff. Like, I'm like a diehard listener of this podcast because I got served ads several times for it on Instagram. That's one thing. But it probably wouldn't have taken 3 ads and however much ad spend that person spent to convert me if like a buddy of mine was like, yeah, I've been listening to this podcast about baseball history that's so up your alley. I probably would have just like immediately listened to it, right? So if you can get your listeners to be that person, that's awesome. And that's probably one of the easiest ways to cut through the noise because it's organic and it's natural.
And again, kind of paralleling other creators like authors out there, like that's why they do these things like book tours. Like it's literally creating that connection and it's engaging directly with your audience. Like engagement is always going to be key, especially you've spent so much time, your listeners trusted you with that time, like literally just thanking them for, thanking you or doing whatever is great.
It's also just a chill vibe, guys. Come on.
It doesn't live a chill vibe.
You're wearing a headliner tie-dye. I had to use the word chill and vibe at some point today.
One of us had to.
Yeah. So, no, but that's very true. Like, it is just like, one, it's the cool thing to do, but like, two, it actually is just like a great way to just build something meaningful with your audience. And that pays dividends at the end of the day. On top of that, speaking of chill vibes, like having consistent branding, it feels like it may not be a way to cut through the noise, right? But it does, because that consistency is important. People might see your audiogram or your Instagram reel once or twice and not think anything of it. But if they keep seeing the same font style and the same branding and all of that stuff, they're going to come to understand like, oh, it's this person. He's going to talk about X, Y, and Z. I like this. Why haven't I checked this out yet? And then you've already gotten yourself a listener. So
exactly. And having
no, you're good.
Having kind of that consistent brand is really like, it's just so great because it allows people to quickly be able to recognize you. It helps you cut through the noise and kind of back to the root of why we're talking about everything. Like, is podcasting too competitive? I mean, the argument could be, that as long as you are doing everything to kind of put yourself forward and cut through the noise by having those consistent colors, having those consistent fonts, having your show art, just kind of having simple variations, like it can seem like very daunting, but the really cool thing about having that brand that's consistent is that you're able to templatize it and you can really like truthfully templatize your content from that as well. So not only is it easier for you, it's easier for people to recognize you in that same vein.
And that's something that we're really good at doing. We do make it pretty easy for you to like template your audio style or your video styles on Headliner, simply so that you can come in with your content and you don't have to spend a lot of time remaking everything every single time you want a video. And, it goes back to my little joke earlier about, oh, it takes so much time to like really push your podcast and all that stuff. The joy of being able to use a tool like Make is that because you're templating that really repetitive stuff, you do have the time to like focus on your content. You do have the time to focus on like doing whatever you need to do to bring your show up an extra notch. Besides that, there are also like other things that we do that are super helpful for creators, Alyssa, like the ability to schedule posting. Maybe instead of now having to remember to post your Instagram clips every single day or whatever, you can just ahead of time, okay, let me take 1 hour to make a bunch of videos, put everything in a queue, and then just have them get posted every day without me having to worry about it.
Yeah, and that's something that I think Headliner's done a really great job of consistently. Historically, it was only for kind of those audio first creators with audiograms. You had the ability to create a template, to send it out. You could kind of own scheduling to a degree in the fact that with automatic audiograms, like Headliner can kind of play that middleman and post your content every time it was released. But yes, now Headliner, it's kind of grown up, it's matured a little bit, like for the creator. So now both audio and video. So this is 2 huge updates that I'm going to talk about. You can now do all of that, kind of more fluidly. So regardless of how you're creating, you can have a template that is consistent. It has your podcast name, it has your show art, it has your caption style, it has whatever the heck you want to put on it because it's your brand, it's your template. It allows you to stay consistent. And then again, kind of you mentioned the scheduling tools. It's super easy. So it's literally you create your clips, and you can even kind of batch create your clips again, whether you're audio first or video first, or you kind of flip between. Doesn't matter anymore. You can have something to share with your audience. But with the scheduling tool, Headliner will literally write your captions in a very branded way. So this is a little bit more technical, but everything with Headliner is kind of rooted in the transcript and then also the RSS feed. So whenever you create a Headliner account, you get this email and this says, hey, claim your podcast. And that's literally you saying to Headliner, hey, this is my podcast. So now we know, okay, this is how they write. These are the colors they use. This is roughly, what they do every time they put a podcast out. So you're literally telling, like, you're giving Headliner a template in essence, and it's saying like, hey, this is what I want you to look at to make my life easier. So Headliner looks back at your RSS feed, looks at your show notes, says, okay, this is what the show is about. This is kind of the writing style. This is roughly the length, all of that stuff. And that informs what Headliner writes for you. And then with that, it looks at the transcripts for individual projects. So you have kind of that overarching brand that Headliner's been fed. Then you have the context of that individual show with the transcript. And now you have these captions, you have these episode titles, you have these clip titles, you have literally everything that's branded to your show that you can now just literally say, I like this clip, cool, okay, I want to put it on Instagram, I want to put it on YouTube, I want to put it on TikTok, I want it to go at it 2, 4, and 6 on like whatever day. Super easy. And that's something Headliner does. Other tools do things as well. But yeah, we're all about trying to just legitimately make it a lot easier because, again, we're podcasters too. We totally understand. Like, it is hard.
It's extremely hard. And I think more than just being podcasters, we're also just like content creators in our own right. Like, we've written for blogs, we've made video content organically on YouTube. We get it. There's a lot of stuff going out there. Kind of going back to the 4 million books thing, there's way more blog posts than 4 million a year, that get published. Or the stat that I always like to throw around is like there's 500 hours of video getting posted onto YouTube every minute, every day. So we get it. And I think, like, to what you're saying, yeah, because we get it, we want these tools to like work in service of what you bring to the table. And we want to make it easier for you to focus on what you do best and leave this kind of other stuff to us. On that note, Alyssa, is there anything else that can help podcasters try to cut through the noise a little bit and help us really put to rest this idea that, podcasting is oversaturated?
Yeah, and again, this is kind of looking at what other creators do. And just because you mentioned it, I have the stats. There are 600 million new blog posts annually.
Okay.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
There's
a lot.
69 million active YouTube creators. And right now, there is 3.7 million podcasts. Not necessarily active, but they're out there. So
just
kind
like
of
total.
Total, yes. Total. Not active, but total.
There are less podcasts total than there are books published in the US alone every year.
Yes, and that's like global numbers. That's
okay.
So that's not
no,
just
well,
US.
the books published in the US isn't every year either, by the way. It's just published, I think.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. At any rate.
The whole thing is like, yes, podcasting is competitive. There's a lot going on, but what can we learn from other creators that are in arguably more competitive spaces? And what some creators have found success with is paid promotion. So this idea of, like kind of paid podcast promotion, what is it? We have a couple of other episodes that do a little bit more of a deeper dive into paid podcast promotion. I would encourage you to go listen to them. I will link them down below. This is my mental note to link those.
We could put it in a card for the people watching on YouTube too. So there'll be a little pop-up probably chopping off part of my head right now.
Nicholas, you do that.
I will.
Because
yeah.
that's not me.
I'll take care of that. Don't worry.
I write the things, you make the things. But anyway, so paid promotion, that can really go a long way in helping you to get directly in front of an interested audience that may not know you in kind of a different way. So with paid promotion, you can do stuff that's kind of external to podcasting or whatever space you're in. So that's going to be things like kind of web display ads, programmatic placement on websites, depending on what type of platform you're on, you can maybe make a YouTube ad. You had mentioned social ads.
Yeah,
There's kind
you
of
could
a
do
lot
like
of
Meta,
options.
TikTok, all that stuff.
Yeah, there's no shortage of options out there for you. But that's kind of something that, authors and like books and just general creators have found success in doing.
Mm-hmm. And for what it's worth, I think audio podcasts are still in a great position to take advantage of this. You just mentioned books. So, one of the main reasons that like book talk creators have to do videos where they talk about other stuff is because it's not easy to take pure text and just promote it on Instagram, right? So they have to do clips of them reading the book or other stuff. But even if you're just an audio only podcast, you can create audiograms that are visually appealing and that use transcription in an interesting way. Or if you happen to record your podcast on like a Zoom or something, you could just use the video for your social clip. So there's a lot of things you can do as a podcaster to just get that content out there in a visually appealing way.
And that's external to podcasting. I mean, internal to podcasting, there's like no shortage of ways for you to promote an audio like recording. There's going to be, podcast ads, host read ads. You can do dynamic ad insertion, getting on other podcasts. You could put audio clips on websites with tools like Podcast Promo. I mean, there's so many things, again, fluid to however you're creating your show. If you're a podcaster specifically and you're like, oh, this idea of paid promotion sounds interesting, where do I get started? Headliner and Sounds Profitable do have kind of this co-branded research project that's ongoing. It's called the Paid Podcast Promotion Landscape. It's totally free for podcasters to use and look at. And it literally just lists out all of the different companies, all of the different brands, roughly what kind of space they live in and what they do, just to kind of help point you in the right direction and get started.
Exactly. And last, I mean, I know a lot of this sounds overwhelming to people, so I do want to press the brakes a little bit and just be like, hey, and remember, like, have fun with it, guys. I feel like I say that every couple of weeks, but it's true, especially like with the marketing stuff. There is so much room to have fun with your marketing and do it in a way that'll grab people's attention. I remember when I started my first podcast, I like literally wanted to reshoot the music video for Subterranean Homesick Blues. It's Bob Dylan's song, Alyssa. Just go with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I wanted to do like an audiogram where it's like me standing on the side of a highway with cue cards, which just have the transcript of the podcast clip. And as it's being said by the audio, I'm like flipping through the cue cards. That was like a real idea. And I'm like kind of sad I never actually shot this. But the point is, you can have fun with it and you can make something that will be click stopping if you're doing external ads. And if you're doing internal ads, there's 1.5 million things with a ton of documentation that you can do. And as you just said, we're the ones sharing that documentation. And we also have spoken about it on this show in the past. So yeah. On that note, Alyssa, anything else we want to tell our awesome listenership before we call it quits?
I think just kind of to tie everything back together, and you pretty much just said some of it, but
yeah,
it is competitive out there. Try not to stress about it too much. Just really focus on your niche and your overall brand and just stay consistent with that, and then reward those that are sticking with you. So just engaging with your listeners. If you haven't if you've been jumping around and you don't necessarily have anything kind of like formal, like a brand book, so that's going to be things like fonts, logos, a show art, I would encourage you to kind of take some time and do it. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. And it's your brand, so you can pick and choose and make it up as you go. It doesn't super matter. There's not a right way to do it. There's not a wrong way to do it. It's yours. That's the beauty of it all. So whatever you do choose, just stick with it and kind of build, and you'll find that momentum over time.
Yeah, exactly. And the key word there is momentum. Momentum always starts slow. So even if you're doing this stuff and you feel like it isn't actually paying off yet, hey, maybe you just need to stick with it a little bit longer. It's like a when it rains, it pours sort of thing. You feel like you're not making any progress, and then you wake up one day and you've made all of the progress at once. So, yeah. On that note, thanks to everyone for listening. We'll be back in a short while with more tips on growing your podcast and just more discussions of the space as a whole. So, thanks for listening.